with the comedy clubs, I was on the radio every week.
Wow.
Being interviewed and whatever.
Yes. So you probably seen a lot of different styles of interviews.
Right.
Mine is kind of like if Barbara Walters was fun. So that's all I aim to do is make this fun and painless. Facebook, you're here, we're here. Look who's in the house, Ross Bennett.
Hey.
Oh my gosh, she's over there in that square. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here. Let me read your introduction to people, Ross. Ross Bennett is proud of the following accomplishments, and you should be too, Facebook. He's a former West Point cadet. Yes, thank you for your service. He's appeared on The Late Show with David Letterman. Wow, how cool is that, you guys? His appearances on A&E's Evening at the Improv under 2 different names. Got to hear about that. His marriage took place on the main room stage of the Comedy Store in LA and was covered by Entertainment Tonight. Give me a break. Is that cool? He was seen on the web series Addicted to Show Business, where I can't read, where he won the 2016 LA Web Fest's Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Web Series. So take that, Facebook. All of us comedians look up to him. He's had 14 million views and still counting on his Dry Bar special. Welcome to the Little Tiny Comic Spot stage. Your favorite and mine, Ross Bennett. Woo!
Yay. Thank you, Linda. That's sweet. Thank you very much.
You bet. What do you want to say about the pandemic where you live?
Well, I got to tell you, it hasn't greatly affected my life. I know it's been horrible out there for a lot of people.
Yep.
But I don't work. It's not like the old days where I was out working, 40 weeks a year, 6 nights a week in the clubs,
Jeez.
Around the country. It's not like when I used to do cruises. A lot of that work I've stopped doing. And now I basically just do corporate events and private functions and the like. And I have not done a show since March 7th, but it wasn't like I was doing 10 a week, So, I mean, I'm anxious to work again, but I've got other things going on other than a life where it's every day is doing stand-up. And I've been very fortunate. I teach a class. I teach 2 classes now.
Wow.
And for the Manhattan Comedy School.
Okay.
Manhattan Comedy School.
Okay.
And one of them is Comedy Writing Boot Camp,
Okay.
which is it's a 6-week intensive where I get them to create material. It's really, the whole thing is about creating material as opposed to writing jokes. It's about creating material.
Okay.
And once everything switched over to Zoom, for my classes are on Zoom, but the performances switched over to Zoom. I now have a class that specializes just in performing live in online streaming platforms like Zoom. It's
Wow.
all about, and that one is just taking off.
Wow.
Because I would watch shows and I would see some people who looked good and some people who didn't. And it's like, this is something we can learn. So I got that going on. My son was just married last weekend.
Congratulations on
last
that.
Friday. And
Mazel tov.
Thank you. And they weren't able to have they had to reduce the number of people. It was 25 people at the wedding, spread out through a church, and but we put some tents up in the back of the house, and we had the reception for 25 people here. They originally wanted it much bigger, but that's all that we could do. And so we had a wonderful, wonderful time. I'm very fortunate.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So like I said, I'm aware. I go out. I got to put on a mask to go into a store, go into the post office. But I'm not, it hasn't affected me as much as it has many people. I mean, I don't have a child in the house. I don't have, nobody's going to school. So there, did I answer your question?
Yes, that's what you're doing during the pandemic. You have the Manhattan Comedy School class, and then you have the online performing on streaming media that you're doing, and
Right.
you have a family and a life. Can't get any better, right?
No, you can't.
Yeah, you're in touch with all that. So, what do you have to say to people coming up way behind you in the biz? 'Cause there's new comics and people with 35, 40 years watching, not right this minute, but they will by the end of the day and beyond. What do you have to say to people about anything show business that you've learned, that you people, what are the typical things people ask you? They go, oh, Ross, let me pick your brain. Oh, let me suck up to you. Can you put me on a show? What do people say to you?
Well, by the way, do I sound good? We didn't get to do a
Yes,
sound check. Okay, good.
you sound
The
great.
So here's my story, Linda.
Okay.
Is I graduated high school in '73. I enlisted in the Army.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. 73 to 76. Where and when were you?
Wow, this is great. I went through basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Whoa.
Okay. And then one thing led to another. And as an enlisted man, the Army eventually sent me to West Point as a cadet. They thought that I might be a good officer. And so I went to West Point prep school from 74 to 75. And then I joined the academy in the class of 79 in the summer of 1975.
Wow.
And I lasted about a year and a half. And here's what happened, Linda. Remember what happened in 1975? A couple of things happened. Number one, Saturday Night Live, a little thing called Saturday Night Live. And so we're the same age, we're the same generation. When that thing hit, it was like, my gosh, people my age were having so much fun being funny.
I know it, right?
And I grew up watching, the comedians on TV, the Robert Kleins and the George Carlins and the Bob Newharts and everything. But then you have Steve Martin, who explodes and become the biggest comedian in the country. And I'll tell you, and I'd always loved doing shows and stuff like that. I always loved doing musicals and the like, anytime I had a chance to do that.
Wow.
And I just couldn't let go of it. There were some people at the academy who could have something like that be what would you call it? An avocation, have it be something that they enjoyed doing, but it wasn't the main focus of their life. For me, I needed it to be everything. And so in February of 77, I resigned from the academy. And it's been, I tell you, it's bittersweet. Even to this day, 43 years ago, and I still think about those times fondly. And I'm aware that you can't have two lives. Okay. I'm aware you can't have two lives. What is your Facebook page, by the way?
Linda Marcus Smith. I tagged you in the post.
Good.
And it said you shared it. Let me see.
I did, but the only reason I'm asking is people are clicking on me, asking for what the page is. I'm going to just put Linda
Marcus Smith, 3 words. And I have the picture of Bobby Rydell and Sinbad as my avatar, because there's a lot of different Linda Smiths.
You have to accept my friends who want to join, though.
I think they can watch without being my friend.
Oh yeah, how do they watch?
I make it public. I made it public. So they just go on my Facebook or yours, and they should be able to see it. Let me go look at your page and see if it's on there. We always have to check up on Zuckerberg. Have you noticed? Yes. And you know what Zuckerberg means in English?
What?
Sugar Mountain, isn't that cocaine?
Uh, you are of my generation, Linda. So what happens, I get out of the academy
Mhm.
and I go down to Florida where I'd gone to high school. And I went to Florida Atlantic University for 1 year studying theater. And I was playing around doing stand up at some clubs in the Fort Lauderdale area. And what happens is I meet a guy after a show in March of '78, and his name was Ted Holum. And he was a comic a few years older than I was. And we did a show, we smoked a joint, and he said, you're very funny. If you move up to Chicago, I have two clubs that were workshops, weren't really comedy clubs, they're workshops. He goes, I can put you on stage 10 times a week. I can't pay you, but I'll put you on stage 10 times a week. And literally within 2 weeks, I dropped out of my third college. I sold the few possessions I had that had any kind of value. And I took out a one-way flight and I went up to Chicago. I lived in the suburbs of Chicago. From there, I put an act together within a few months. And by the late summer, I went out to San Francisco and I did the San Francisco Comedy Competition in '78. I made it to the semis. I sort of made a little name for myself there in that scene. And long story short, by January of '79, I moved down to Los Angeles. Okay.
That's fast track.
And I lived there for 5 years. Now, timing is everything. Okay. I believe that the '70s, the mid '70s, 75 to 80, it was the gold rush for comedians.
Yes.
It was like, because there's so many people my age, my generation, it was like we were hearing the drum beats, that there was this thing going on. We all had this, we were watching these things and we all just get drawn into this. And these clubs start to pop up. We start getting some stage time. And so my contemporaries, are everybody from like Seinfeld to Louis Anderson to Tim Allen to Drew Carey. These are all, if you will, and all of us, I always tell people, all of us were shooting for that level of success.
Right.
Okay. And of course, we're not all able to get to that level of success. Now, there's some people I know who, if they didn't get to that, it was like, screw it, I'm out of here. Okay. They were looking for that fast and easy buck, But for those of us who are really comics inside, these clubs opened up. We started going out on the road. We were doing all these sets. It was like vaudeville, doing 10 shows a week or 9 shows a week. And we all became very proficient at being modern professional stand-up comics, so that after 3-4 years, you could pretty much just put me in the whole thing. They don't know me. The audience doesn't know me really. But you say, ladies and gentlemen, Ross Bennett, I can go up and within 2 minutes, I got him and I can do 45 minutes. Okay. And I got lots of friends, some of them have, gone different levels and all this, Jeff Allen's doing very well. But, and Jeff Jenna, I mean, there's just a lot of guys. I can't go through the list. So
yeah,
that's what drew me into this.
Okay.
All right. I did this because I had to.
Exactly.
And that's the only reason I got good. I left myself no other options. There was nothing else I could imagine doing. So I meet people, young people today, people who want to do this and whatever. And I don't know what to tell them because, it's a different world now. I think there's a lot of them that I know who want to do it, but they're not willing to. You got to let go of the dock in order to go swimming,
Wow.
And they don't want to necessarily let go of the dock. So their world is different. Their process is different of how they get their stage time, how they get, but I find if they want to do it and they have they have the skills for it, the basic, they have the basic talent, the ability to acquire the skills, they figure out a way. All right. I teach these classes, and I know a lot of teachers who have different, comics, once again, like myself, have been around for quite a while, who are teaching classes, and they have different philosophies on it. Mine is a supportive environment. All right. They don't need me to beat them up.
Thank you.
Okay. They're going to get plenty of that if they get stage time. Okay.
Totally.
I try and teach them how to create material. I try and steer them away from being hacks. I don't have a problem with blue material per se, but I encourage them to not, in my class, to not create blue material, because if you do that, you never find out if it's quality material. My whole thing with the students I teach is I want it to be quality material. All right. You want the kind of material, because, I remember when I was at the Comedy Store, there was hundreds and hundreds of comics coming out and auditioning. Okay. Very few of them passed. I passed at the Improv and at the Comedy Store. But even once I passed, because I was very good at getting response from an audience, I had some interest from agents and those kind of folks, some producers and the like, but I couldn't really get to that next level. I couldn't get the Tonight Show. Remember when I auditioned for the Tonight Show for Jim McCauley, he said, I didn't see anything I thought was funny. And I didn't see anything and I definitely didn't see anything that Johnny would think was funny. Okay. And it crushed me. But what I realize now, this guy has seen 1,000 comedians. What is it that's going to stand out to him? All right. And it ends up being quality material. And I had some good jokes, but obviously when Seinfeld came out, this guy had like 45 minutes of material that he had spent 4 years developing in Manhattan before he even came out there. Okay. And the people who hit that stage with quality material made a big, big difference. So, have I answered your questions?
Yes. So when people come up to you, young comics, they out themselves as younger comics than you. Do they ask the same kind of things, or do they want to hang out with you, or have you give them connections? What drives you nuts about how people come up to you who are comics?
Oh, it's not really an issue for me. If I was to be realistic about this,
Mhm.
or accurate,
Yeah.
you have to understand. My career had a lot of hills and valleys.
Okay.
I changed my name twice. Okay. I worked as Ross Bennett, and then I worked as Eddie Strange from about from 85 to about 88. I went back to Ross Bennett for a couple of years. I went back to Eddie Strange from about 91 until 2000. And I spent most of the 90s over in England, performing a lot over in the UK. And in 2000, I decided to do a hard restart of my career.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved to New York. Actually, I'm in New Jersey, but I'm outside of Manhattan, right outside of Manhattan. And I decided to restart my career, let go of my ego, and just start over again. And I was 45, and I got into the clubs, which was at that time, to be 45 and to break into those clubs, it was not a lot of guys did it.
Comic Strip Live,
right?
They'll say,
the truth is, a lot of road comics would come and try and audition, but they hadn't grasped the idea that a 5-minute showcase set is not 5 minutes out of your road act. Okay. It's different, so I had worked for a good year in my mind, the idea of what's the best 5 minutes of jokes, and that are smart jokes, that have nice, that are consistent and have a nice edge to them. So when I auditioned at the comic strip, they immediately wanted me to work there. Changed my
Wow.
life. I was 45 years old, and it just got me. It changed my life. It really did. Lucian
Wow.
Hold was his name. Lucian Hold was the guy who was the talent coordinator, and he befriended me. We became great friends. We played golf together, had dinner together. We hung out a lot. And those 3 years, he passed away, I think, about 3 or 4 years later. But those were great times for me, and it really helped set me up. And so then,
Gladys Simon is my coach.
oh, Gladys. Ask Gladys. Have you had Gladys on your show?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, ask Gladys about me. I was never somebody who went to her open mics and stuff like that.
No.
Because I was already, pretty much fully formed. However,
Yeah.
she's always been very nice to me, very supportive. She's a sweetheart.
She is.
So when people come up to me these days, they're very respectful. Okay. They're only going to come up to me if they've seen me on something, and I don't have I walk down the street. I don't have a big, there's not a giant group of people who know Ross, but there are some people who know Ross, and a lot of them are comics, young comics, because they're on the YouTube. They're looking for things. They're on the YouTube. I don't believe I just said they're on the YouTube. Take me out and shoot me. They're looking at comics on YouTube. And so they've seen my Letterman. They've seen some of my Evening at the Improvs. And then this Dry Bar special.
Yeah.
I've got 2 CDs that have done very well. They've played the hell out of it on Sirius XM. God bless Sirius XM. And so I do have people who are aware of what I do, and when they come up, they're familiar with me, and they're, like I say, they're very respectful. It makes me feel older than I really want to feel like I am. But they'll call me Mr. Bennett. And I said, my name is Ross. Just come over here, talk to me. And I tell them a lot of times, I said, this is something that if you want to do it, you have to do it. If there's anything else that can make you happy, you should probably do it, because most people can't handle the 5, 6, 7 years it really takes to get good.
Yeah.
To really get, to get the chop. Now, some people can do it a lot easier, a lot quicker, but I'm telling you, most of them, it's a long time to get the experience you need to be able to do this. And I said, so if you have to do this, you'll do it. And I wish them the best. Sometimes I'll look at their act, and, I remember one time at the Comedy Store, and I lived in LA from the first time from 79 to 84.
Okay.
And so at the Comedy Store, I think it was the summer of 80.
Okay.
Richard Pryor was putting together his Live on Sunset Strip concert. Okay.
Wow.
And he had done the one Richard Pryor live in concert a year before I got there. So, and that one has very successful. So then he's going to put together a show for another concert, the Live on Sunset Strip. That's the one where he's wearing the red suit. Okay.
Yep.
And what happens is he shows up and he just starts going up on stage with virtually no material.
Wow.
He's so raw. He's so insecure. He's very uncomfortable, but he starts telling a couple of stories, a couple of this, a couple of that, and he starts to get a couple of laughs. All right. And then he comes back the next night, and those pieces have been saved and other things have been added to it. And he ends up, and Paul Mooney's with him, and he's got some other people in his crew that are kind of hanging with him, writing, and the next 2.5, 3 months, at the end of it, he's got an hour and 20 minutes of killer material.
Jeez. Killer material.
Okay. And I've always considered that period of time to be sort of I got a master class from Richard Pryor.
Yes.
All right. That's how I look at it. But we didn't, he was there. The great thing about comics is that we all do this, whether you're Jerry Seinfeld or me, we do the same thing. He makes 30, $40 million a year. I make 30 or $40,000 a year. Okay. But essentially we're doing the same thing. All right. And so if we hang out, if we're at a table together at some comedy club waiting to go up, we've got things that we can talk about. All right.
Yes.
We share that experience because you can't, even if you're a giant star like Richard Pryor, but if you're coming to a comedy club, you're still going to be around comics.
It's true.
Okay. And comics have this common bond. I remember one time I went on before him and I come off and he's waiting to go up and he just says, that's very funny. Very nice show. Okay. Now, did he have to say that? No.
No.
But he knew instinctively that it means something when he says something like that, okay, to somebody who's like 23, 24 years old. And so I always try and be respectful of young comics.
Nice.
You know,
That's very nice.
I don't want to lie to them, but I don't need to be a jerk either. And so I always try and be supportive.
That's awesome. I
You know,
love hearing this.
And that has carried over into my classes that I teach. I try and be supportive. I try and find the things about them that are special, because my big thing is originality. I want them to find that thing in them that they think is funny, and then figure out how to tell that to an audience of people and get them to laugh. Yeah. Your
classes, how affordable are they? Are you open to talking about that here, or do you want us to go?
It's if you go to ManhattanComedySchool.com, ManhattanComedySchool.com, you look at the classes. He's got Andy Engels had the school for 20 years, and
I had him on.
Oh, good. Karen Bergreen, she teaches the beginner's class. Karen is wonderful. We've known each other for 20 years now. She hasn't gotten older, but I have. And I know DC Benny.
I love him. He was on.
And he teaches a
storytelling.
Yeah.
A master at it.
I got my classes that I teach. So you go on there. I think it's $3.99 for 6 classes, and they're 3-hour classes. Okay. For my comedy writing boot camp. And it's $4.50 for my live performance, performing live on Zoom, learning. I call it stand-up boot camp level 2, mastering performance on Zoom.
Wow.
All right. So that's how those things, that's the situation with those.
Do you ever help people one-on-one with their sets to make them match?
I do coaching sessions. And
they find you.
First off, I got to tell you, I never wanted to teach, Linda.
Is that right?
I never wanted to teach. I'd always, what's the old joke?
Those who teach can't.
Those who can.
Can't. Those who can't.
Those who can do. Those who can't teach. Those who can't teach driver's ed. Remember that? It's not my joke. It was like, I remember hearing guys say that, whoever said it. But I never wanted to be a teacher because I didn't want to be considered someone who wasn't working. All right. And I have a line in my act about people thinking I look like I'm a teacher. And a couple of jokes about it. What's his name? Sherrod Small. You know Sherrod Smalls?
I know the name.
I always used to open up and I would say, people say I look like I'm a teacher. And then I'd say, settle down. Okay, settle down. So some people say that he could look like I'm a teacher. And then one night at the comic strip, Sherrod says, you look like the science teacher they thought smoked pot. You look like the science teacher who smoked pot. And I took that line and I incorporated it into my act. I've been doing it now for 20 years. And it always, I say, some people think I look like I'm a teacher. They say I look like the science teacher they suspected might have smoked pot, right? That's right, class. Today, we're going to use our Bunsen burners differently. All right.
So, Comic Spot, I love it. I know you've loved it. Let's keep it going. I need your help. I developed it so you out there can get to know comics, whether they're brand new or 45 years in the biz. We're going to get to know them so you'll know who to love. So, all I need you to do is donate to my Cash App, and that is Linda Marcus Smith. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is part 2. We've been on the horn with Ross Bennett. He's here still talking, and we introduced him on the first video. So we're just going to continue with the conversation. Ross Bennett is very well known in the comedy community. He's a legend. Not so many things that I already said. Let's just go right back into the conversation, Ross, where we left off. You were talking about respecting other comedians.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's just so much easier for me to try and I'm not always perfect on it. There's people I'll meet who would have opened, would work. We would do a club 25 years ago, and they were like an opening act when I was headlining, and they'll come up to me and go, "I remember when I worked with you and such and such," and I'll say, "Was I nice to you? Was I decent?"
Oh.
They go, yeah. Very few of them have ever said, you were a jerk. So that's encouraging to me, if you will.
Yes. Who in the comedy world came along that people would know that was nice to you, helped you, or whatever?
Let me see. How is that? What is going on there with that? I see. I'm going to switch cameras again. Hold on. All this technical stuff, Linda.
Yeah, don't worry.
There
Look
we
at
go.
me. I didn't even keep my phone charged.
So no one, there were people around the clubs, that were, who was nice to, it's not that they were, a lot of them were nice to me, I mean, but it did seem like there was a lot of those who were already established. I think that there was a sense of, now there's all these other people who are like at their heels, and I think they could feel it.
Wow.
Okay, I think some of them felt a little bit threatened,
Yeah.
not necessarily by me, but just in general,
Sure.
Because some of these guys that were really had really already established themselves, But people like Jay Leno was always nice. Okay.
Always.
But it's funny, when I moved to New York, I ended up belonging to the Friars Club.
Yeah.
And there was a guy, he's still alive, nice guy, friendly guy, Dick Capri. He was in Catskills on Broadway. He was an opening act for A-list stars. Then he began the Catskills on Broadway. And he was the Gentile in Catskills on Broadway. Okay, they wanted a Gentile in the show. And we sort of ended up bonding a little bit. He was very, very nice to me because I'm not Jewish, and so we had this. We're the Gentiles in this world, in this in this Friars Club. It wasn't just the two of us, but it was mostly Jewish.
Yeah.
And we played a lot of golf together. Sweet guy. I did a show once, and Robert Klein was on the show at there. And I went up and I had a great set. And afterwards, Robert Klein came up and shook my hand, looked me square in the eyes, and said, "That was very, very good. Very funny." And he walked away, and a friend of mine came up to me who was also on the show, and he leaned in and he goes, "He's never said that to me."
Wow. That's a
So
great thing.
for some people, they're very cautious about, they don't want to, they basically want to make sure they always speak the truth. Now, that friend of mine who said that to me, about 6 months or a year later, he did a show with Robert Klein, knocked it out of the park at I think it was an event, maybe it was for Stewie Stone or something like that. And at that one, he came up to him afterwards and said it was very, very good, But so there's moments like that you sort of remember. I think that when I did the Late Show with David Letterman, I had a good set, and he came up to me. This is something that's be with me forever.
Yeah.
Because I know comics. I mean, here's the thing: we all wanted to be called over to sit next to Johnny. Okay, we all knew what that meant. Okay, and Drew Carey, I think, was the one who really he got what all of us wanted. Okay, He went on, he knocked it out of the park. Johnny brought him over, talked to him. Drew's just, smiling. They go to the next cast. Drew starts to get up, and Johnny holds his arm and says, "No, Drew, this is the part where you move down to the next seat." Okay, and Drew's life was never the same after that.
Wow.
All right. So we all wanted that, and I know guys who did, something like, Jake Johansen, who, when I did the San Francisco comedy competition 5 times. The last time I did it was 86. I came in second place, and Jake Johansen came in first. All right. And Jake's had a wonderful career. I think he probably did the Letterman show 20, 30 times. Okay.
Jeez.
But that wasn't me. For me, I was 58 years old. I had been told that I wasn't right for the show by the talent booker.
Wow.
I was told I wasn't right for the show for years. And everybody would say, "But you're perfect for the show." And he would say, "You're not right for the show." And I had given up on it. And he ended up losing his job. Okay. And when he lost his job, he ended up, they brought in new talent coordinators who were younger, and they wanted to go out and check out and see what was on in New York City. They wanted to see what and I did an audition, and there was like 30 of us, and they were interested in 2 people, and I ended up doing the show. The other one was Colin Jost, who's from, he does stand up some. And then so I ended up doing the show about 10 months later. It took 10 months from when they said yes to when I actually did it. And so I do it, and I was really, I got a lot of garbage up here, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stuff, if you will. And like many of us do. But I did my show. I had a good set, and I focused on material that I thought that David would like. That's what I wanted. I wanted to entertain him.
Absolutely.
And so I finished my set. The audience is applauding, and all of a sudden he comes into my vision from the side, and he leans in, and he has this giant grin on his face. And frankly, he was not always the friendliest guy to comics. Okay.
Oh no, he wasn't.
He had this giant grin, and he said something along the lines of, that was lovely. And then he stuck out his hand, and he said, "Hello, Ross. My name is Dave Letterman."
Wow. Okay.
And it was ironic. Okay. Of course I know that, but he was just being very friendly to me. Wow. Now I stood there with him for maybe 30 seconds. And that moment I've remembered for the past 7 years, and I'll remember it for the rest of my life. Okay. Because it was a moment that sort of solidified in my mind that I was a good professional comedian. Okay.
Sure.
And after that, on Facebook, I got all sorts of, people saying hello and congratulations. And many, many comics of my generation, they said, the guys I'd worked with, for 25, 35 years, they said, really glad you did it. This is what we all wanted, because
Wow.
I,
Yes.
and I ended up, and it just sort of sank in. I find that you have to take those good moments and you really have to embrace them. Okay. And it helps you
Absolutely.
let go of the times that aren't so great.
Absolutely.
The guy who says, I didn't see anything I thought was funny. And I definitely didn't see anything that Johnny thought was funny. Crushed me, but it didn't push me out of the business. I've always said that might have been the moment when my drinking crossed the line from being a problem drinker to being an alcoholic, but that's another story.
So at the Friars Club, did you ever meet George Bettinger? He was a very good friend of mine, but he unfortunately took his life 3 hours after our last phone conversation.
Oh gosh, I'm certain I did, but
Impressionist. He did a lot of George Jessel, those kind of. He did a lot of impressions.
I would be disingenuous if I said I remembered him, but if I saw a picture with my memory and everything, if I saw a picture, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah.
Hold on. We're on the internet, for heaven's sakes. Let me see.
Oh, hey.
Hold on. Don't go anyplace. I'll be right here for a second. George Bettinger. Bettin Bettinger.
Yes, just like that. Inger.
All right. And I'm looking for a picture.
Dark hair.
I see him right now.
Not a face.
I don't remember him.
He lived in Florida at the end, but he was a member, and he had a radio show, and he asked me on, and he'd say, I want you to do a skit on this. I want you to do a character like this. They love that. He called me, what did he call me? He gave me a stage name. Such a fan. I am such a fan of George Bettinger's Mom and Pop Shop on the radio.
When did he
called
pass
me
away?
Such a fan. I'm going to say less than 2 years ago.
Oh, well, that's a shame.
Yeah. But we see that all the time in the comedy community. All the time. We see stuff like that.
But the truth is we tend to know a lot of people who do what we do.
Yeah.
Insurance salesmen don't know 500 insurance salesmen.
That's true.
But comedians are familiar with maybe 500 comedians.
Yes.
And when you know that many, then these incidences and everything. And then if we don't know them, we've heard of them because of various things, because of their careers and everything. So I do my best to not try and set myself or set us up that we're that different.
That's good. I like that. That's good.
Different. We have a different experience, in terms of some specifics, but the arc of a life, I do like, one thing I like about when I hang out with Dick Capri, he's down in Florida now. And I would go down there and work the condos and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And, but when I would hang out with him, he always had issues with civilians, non-comedians. And it is true, after a while, there is a line of what I'm able to have with a civilian. Okay. I have some civilian friends. Okay. But the thing is, when you meet a civilian, once they find out you're a comic, that's all the conversation is about.
True.
Within 30 seconds. Have you ever met Jerry Seinfeld? I think Leno's funny. What about this guy Dice? Whatever's going on, boom. I'm now the repository of all information, and I always have a hard time if they say something and they're inaccurate in their assumptions. I always feel necessary to try and correct them, which doesn't bode well, because you're crushing their images. Okay. When I worked on cruise ships, here's the thing about cruise ships is I'm a celebrity after they see my show.
Got it.
So from the time the show starts until the cruise starts, until my show, I'm just a passenger. From the moment I do my show on, I'm the Walmart guy, I'm the colonoscopy guy, I'm, the 2 or 3 routines I have that they remember. That's what they want to talk about. And so and the thing is, they're all excited to do it. And they all feel like they're saying this stuff for the very first time. And I get a sense of what real celebrities, that's what it's like for their entire life when they're out in public. Okay. If William Shatner meets somebody, Captain Kirk's going to be brought up within 30 seconds. And I that's why I've often said that celebrities, these people who make a lot of money, don't kid yourself. That money is for more than just your work. Okay. Part of that money is to offer you some level of insulation in the world so that you can have a compact life that is private. Okay.
Wow.
You just can't take that money. Some of it's going to have to be spent for, security.
Absolutely. So but you in your life, who inspired you the most? Maybe not necessarily to get into comedy, but as you got into comedy and saw other people after you got in, who inspired you? Because everybody asks you who inspired you growing up. But
well, here's the thing. I don't come from a show business. Technically, it's not like my family was in show business.
Okay.
However, my grandfather, my father's father, went off and worked in vaudeville for 2 years.
Oh.
In like 1919, 1920, 1922, 1921, okay? And he went to New York, got on a show, was a hoofer, did a tour, came home, went out and did another tour. This time he was a hoofer as well as being the prop guy. And once that was done, he'd had enough of it. He didn't need to do it. He had met a girl back in his hometown. My grandmother's sister was a professional singer. She moved to New York City, probably 1917, 18, 19, 1920, maybe a little bit after that. And she sang professionally in churches. There was a lot of places for people to work. And she worked for Thomas Edison.
What?
She made recordings for Thomas Edison and went out and gave demonstrations for Edison. We have photographs of her with Edison, okay? So even though my parents weren't in show business and that people weren't making there's elements of this in my family's past, okay? So I still did not have great familiarity with the world of show business. And so when I came into this, I was just like, I'd never really seen a comedian live. I'd seen the dozen or so that you would see on TV. Okay. So when I'm at West Point, I'm a plebe. It's 1975. I'm a plebe.
What's a plebe?
A plebe is a freshman.
Okay.
It's taken from the term plebeian from Roman history. Okay.
Okay.
Now the seniors are called firsties because they're the first class, second class, third class, fourth class. Okay.
Got it.
It's the firsties. Okay. They had a cadet acting troupe.
Oh, wow.
Okay. A club. It was a club. Mm-hmm. And there was a cadet there. His name was Randy Rogel. Randy Rogel, Rogel. And he was a first classman. And he was very involved in the cadet acting troupe. And he could sing, he could dance, he could tap dance. He wrote music. And I remember I was a chorus member in Music Man.
Wow.
And he directed it, and he played Marcellus. He played Marcellus, the guy who helps Harold Hill, because Randy's probably about 5'6", 5'7", 5'8". He didn't cast him. He could have played Harold Hill and killed, but he had to cast a guy who was who was bigger. And so he took the role of Marcellus. He was wonderful. He sang Shapoopy and all that. Now, I remember we were all rehearsing one day, dancing one of the townspeople numbers, and I just remember him saying, he's doing very good, pointing to me. He wasn't saying it to me, he was saying it to somebody else. That moment might have been what made it so I resigned from West Point. Okay, that one, just hearing a person compliment me on that, okay? But I think it had something to do with it. Fast forward, about 1990, I'm watching Animaniacs with my son, the TV show Animaniacs, and I see down at the bottom songs by Randy Rogel.
Wow.
What's going on here? And I ended up looking him up 15 or 20 years later. He finished his time at the academy. He started working up in Washington, but he spent a year, he went down to LA and he lived on someone's couch and became a writer. And he ended up being a writer for animated shows. He ended up getting involved with Animaniacs, Steven Spielberg's company. Almost all of those songs that you would hear on Animaniacs, he wrote all of those. And wonderful performer. I think if there was a show, Singing in the Rain, he's done more productions, more road productions of Singing in the Rain than anybody else. He plays the Donald O'Connor part because he's able to do all that dancing. Okay, but here's the thing: he didn't have the need I had. He was able to just go out in the Army, graduate from West Point, to be an officer for 5 years. And then later he said, I think I want to give this a try and everything. He had a great effect on me, okay? Because that was a person who I saw his talent, all right? I've always been able to recognize talent. When I see it, I admire it. And witnessing his talent and him being decent with me as a first classman when I was a plebe, that was inspirational to me. Now, you would never think that someone like that
stuck with you.
Yeah, and that's why I always remember, whenever you meet someone, you never know where they're going to go. You never know what they're going to do. And it doesn't hurt to try and be decent with them.
Yes. What's the legacy? This is my last question. We've gone a good amount of time between the two videos. My last question is, what legacy have you left, and what stone has not been turned over yet that you want to turn over, or stones?
Well, the legacy that's been left in terms of my personal life, my son got married. Okay. And he's got a lovely wife.
It's huge.
My son is a good man, big heart, and I'm just so happy for him. So in terms of my personal legacy, I'm just very proud. I'm very proud of my son. In terms
Congratulations for having a good son.
Professionally, I don't know if I have a legacy per se. Okay. There are people who've seen me and they enjoy what I do, and they've bought my CDs and they've come out and seen me do shows and stuff like that. If there was a legacy that it's okay to entertain people, I never was successful at trying to say something important. So many of recent generations of comedians, they're really, they were heavily influenced by Bill Hicks and saying things and having things be very important socially and politically and all of that. God bless them. If that's what works for them, go for it. Me, I want them to go away and have 45 minutes where they forget. There's two things that come to mind, okay? One, I'm doing a show at the Stress Factory in New Brunswick. This is about 7 or 8 years ago. And I went up, did my show, did my stuff, had a great set. On the way out, this father and son. The father's probably about my age. The son's probably in his early 20s. And they just said, we want to thank you. My wife is in the hospital right now, and she's, you know, she's dying. You know, she has cancer. And for 45 minutes, you allowed us to not see that. And so many, you know, it makes it so whenever I'm performing now, I always think, how many people have those things going on that they don't share with me? You know, and that's my real job. The other thing is a guy is a comic, but he wasn't a comic when this happened. And this is, it sounds like I'm bragging. Maybe I am, but it touches me. It touches me.
Yes.
This is about 1985. I'm working in Colorado Springs, and I think that was called the Comedy Spot or whatever, comedy something. Okay. And so what happens, I get an email about 10 years ago. And he goes, you don't remember me, but in 1985, I had decided to kill myself.
Whoa.
And I was driving around Colorado Springs, and I was depressed, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I just went into the comedy club there, and you were on stage. And it just changed the way I felt.
Wow.
And
I have chills.
I didn't try and hurt myself. I became a comedian.
Oh, that's so
And
cool.
this guy ended up out in Los Angeles. He was a comic. I think he did some writing. And, you know, I have that letter. And it's like, if there's a legacy, it's to all comics. It's like, you never know who's out there. My ego is so wrapped up in wanting to be a star and wanting to, you know, to be at the very top. However, when we're in the constraints of the 45 minutes of the set that we're doing, you can let go of all of that and just try and be the best comic you can be and entertain people the very best you can entertain them. And then, you know, you can become an ego jerk on the way.
Yeah.
and lament your lot in life afterwards. Okay. And if there's any stone unturned, I did an acting job in January, just a couple of words on New Amsterdam, but it was a real acting job with real money. And I would love to be able to get more acting work. I would love a little part on a TV show.
Yeah.
You know? I'll tell you, we'll close with this. I'll tell you this one thing.
Okay.
When I started out, I wanted to be a star of a TV show. Okay. After about 10 years, I said, you know, I'd be happy with just a supporting part, like a supporting part, like not Seinfeld, but maybe like, you know, Michael Richards. Okay.
Yeah.
And then after about another 10 years, it's like, okay, if I could just have a little part where it was like 30 seconds a show, like maybe it's a show about a school, and I would be Gus the janitor. And my bit was every week when the students were coming in, they would say something to me, and I always had something to say back to them. Okay. And that was every show. Okay. At this point in my life, I would just be happy for a union job as a janitor on the set of a sitcom. Okay.
Hilarious.
But no, I'd love a little part of the show, and someday it might happen. You never know, you know, Linda, you never know where God's going to take you.
Right.
Or what you're going to be given.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah. You are so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing and opening up on this. And I appreciate your taking time. It's a very important to me to be able to adequately thank you for doing this. So I hope
my
you feel
pleasure.
it. Come back anytime and promote anything.
This is the longest conversation I've had in 5 months.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Ross Bennett. I hope you have a wonderful day. And in 1 to 4 days, my tech guy will either splice it together, part 1 and 2, but it'll come out looking like a sitcom, and I'll send it to you if you'll share
Fabulous. Thank you, dear.
Thank you so much, Ross. Ross Bennett, you guys. I'll put all your information on the post again.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Love you.
Everybody's